Suddenly Thousand is a mob controlling game that takes inspiration from Pikmin and the Swapper. As a lone individual, you can recruit characters with synchronized movements to help push blocks, trigger switches, and avoid perilous lasers. Help lead the mob to its sacred safe house. Suddenly Thousands is an open source game developed by one developer from Baking Game Jam 08 in October 2014. My name is Taro. My name is Taro Mia. I am the developer of this and one of the developers at Omiya Games. And I'm here to do a let's play of my own game, Suddenly Thousands. So let's get right to it. You can probably tell from the introductory scene that I put a lot of characters in there to kind of give you the impression that this is what I mean by Suddenly Thousands. But here you go, level 1. So the way I usually construct levels is kind of tell you right off the bat how to control the game. I'm being a little bit lazy by telling you right off the bat that you're supposed to press WASD or arrow keys to move, which obviously lets you move like so. And actually, this is kind of a deliberate decision because I'm trying to my best to not to assume that the person who's playing this game knows how to actually play any other game. And especially when your control scheme is something like as big as a keyboard where there's a million buttons, that can be very intimidating. So anyways, here we go. I'm gonna move with WASD, move a little forward and set space to jump. As you can tell, I constructed this level so that you're required to jump, plus the space and the finish line in front of that. You may have also noticed that technically speaking, this room is very wide and open. The original intent on that was to allow you to kind of move around and get you a better feel of how quick the character moves and so forth. And obviously with a base like that where you're forced to kind of jump, it gives you a better idea of how much air control you have, how tall you jump and so forth. And finally we have the finish line here. It's very hard to miss that finish line, but obviously that's there to let you know this is what the objective of the game is. This is how you play the game. So let's just go right through that. We made it! Alright, let's go. Next level. The second level is very, very similar to the first one in the sense that it's there to kind of teach you the controls again. It's a little narrower this time, but since the user knows what the objective is, it's no longer a big problem that that's the case. I'm already introducing here lasers that, should they just run into, they'll realize, okay, that you die. So that's there to teach them. Right here I tell them the mouse to move to adjust the camera. I didn't introduce this earlier when I could have. Reason being that I wanted to make sure that the control scheme, when they're first learning how to play this game, I'm giving them as minimal instructions as possible. So since at this point it's actually relevant to know when that you need to move the camera, this is actually the point where I start teaching this. And doing so should reveal that right there is the finish line. Now you might notice that the finish line now says 0/2. Already that's giving a clue as to how many characters need to actually pass through the finish line. But my line of thinking originally was, since there are lasers over here and lasers over there, it will immediately catch the user's attention, the player's attention, and they'll be attracted to go here first. Well, they don't necessarily have to go here first, but still. Doing that as a consequence, you might notice now that the finish line says 1 and 2, but it no longer says that you've finished the game. And that kind of gives you the idea that, okay, I actually need 2 characters to jump into here. Most people pretty much just went right forward and into this section last time I checked all those Let's Play. And actually that's a pretty good thing in my opinion, but nonetheless, here we go. We now have the second set of controls, which is left click to recruit, or left control. We have the character rising up, and right around here, it's pretty clear that the character's movements are synchronized. The level shape kind of really forces you to learn that. One, we have it so that he has to actually move towards your direction, and second, we have this part where you have to jump, right? And they're both jumping at the same time. So at this point, you're learning that, hey, these characters are synchronized. They jump at the same time, they move at the same time as you're pressing these control sticks. So here we go. Let's go right to the next level. Up to this point, these have been very deliberate. I think I've made the first and the second level first, and the third level third as well. Usually I actually recommend starting off at like the third level-ish, and then once you get a good idea of what you want to do, you'll start constructing your first and the second level. But in my case, I had the confidence of making a good first and second level, so that's what I did there. Seeing that the first and the second level were purely tutorial, at the third level, usually I try to say within like 10 to 15 minutes, you want to convince the player why they want to play the game. And here is the part where we suddenly get the idea that, hey, there's a lot of characters to control at once. This is teaching multiple things at once. First off, there's this little circle here that I newly added, in case you played this game in the previous rendition before, but this circle now indicates where your recruitment circle is, kind of like the whistle in Pikmin. So if you click on that, now you're recruiting a lot of characters at once. Already I'm teaching this mechanic right here with everyone grouped up in a small space. Second are these yellow blocks. They're kind of stacked haphazardly, and that's very deliberate. It's to kind of give you the impression that these are these are interactable. And I know that a lot of people just kind of immediately ran right into it, or at least tried jumping onto it, and then noticed that it started falling over again. And not only did that help, but also now you see where the finish line is. It's all the way on the upper level like that. So this is already giving them a notion that, hey, whenever you see these yellow things, you have to push them around. So they're already naturally learning how to play the game. At this point also, remember I said previously that I need to tell them why they want to play the game. Personally, when I first made this game, it was actually out of complete accident. I ended up putting two characters with the same control script, and long story short, I was incredibly mesmerized by the fact of how they were just moving all at the same time, and I just kept on adding more and more characters. And I just felt more and more satisfied seeing that. So right off the bat, I'm telling you, this is the reason why I made this game. I just found this concept to be such a fun and interesting idea that I want you to know within the third level, within 10 minutes, understand why I made this game for the first place, why I think you should be playing the game too. So I'm just going to go on right ahead and start trying to solve this puzzle. You might notice, by the way, that at this point, different characters not only move at different speeds, but also jump at different heights as well. Already at this point, I'm letting you know about this, which becomes a very relevant information later on. And here, finally, again, I'm giving you one of the last sets of instructions, which is to press Q or E to switch characters. There are a few regrets I have about this because there's one more mechanic that I'll talk about later. But in this case, though, I was thinking along the lines of, with everyone active the way they are, you should be able to solve this problem pretty quickly. So anyways, I'm just going to go right ahead and press Q or E. And right then and there, you now know that, hey, you can now control different characters as well. And actually, this kind of gives a good angle of it, because now you have to kind of learn that these characters jumps at different heights. So, if you actually carefully count on the top HUD, it says that for the goal, you only need 7 people versus how many people you actually have active, which is 9. Originally, I had it so that you only had 9 characters, and you had to get it absolutely perfect. You had to get all 7 characters to go in there. But I'm personally kind of the guy to allow a lot of leeway for the player. I don't think perfection is something that you should require from the player at all. So I changed that to 9 characters. I changed the number of characters active to 9, and just allow the player to kind of ease into the game. There it is. Level 4. This is where I first introduced the switches. You're already seeing that I have one right here with a bunch of lasers on it. That's intended to really get your attention right there, and that you might want to jump over into it. When you do that, it'll say, hey, you got a green, it's okay, something happened. The sound effect is going on, but it seems like something happened. Maybe the line connecting to the line connecting to the switch to the door has disappeared, and it seems like that was the only thing that's going on. And at this point, a lot of people's instinctive reaction was to just kind of turn the camera around and realize that there was a lot more characters and there are a few more switches to go through. So let's just go right on ahead and do that. Right as you enter into the switch, I let you know that if you right-click, you can dismiss your characters. Previously, I mentioned in the previous level that I have a small regret to it. That is, I haven't really introduced the dismiss portion of that, or dismiss controls in that level, which a lot of people kind of eventually learned, but that was the level that they learned it in, instead of this one. So it was kind of my bad on that sort of intent. Give me a minute. Rob, can you let the janitor know? So I'm just going to go right on ahead and try solving this problem, this puzzle. So now that 5 people came in, it says okay. If I walk out, it remains okay. So right there, I'm teaching them that these yellow switchers are one-time situations. You just have to be able to get the right number of people, and once it's active, it's done. This is also a level where you kind of realize very obviously, I'm reinforcing this again, very obviously that different characters move at different speeds. Originally, when I had this, the characters, when I was coding this, characters was already running at different speeds, and at first I felt like I wanted to fix that so that they all ran at the same speed, but I kind of realized after playing around with it that I prefer the game being chaotic in nature, and so I just kept that trait and also added in different jump heights as a consequence. So, alright, we go to the next level. This level is a little interesting. Give me a minute, let me go through my notes here. This is the 7th level I designed, not the 5th, even though we're in level 5. There are many reasons for that, and I'm gonna go through them right now, but long story short... Excuse me. Give me a minute. No, just let him know which one's respecting and which one's trash. Sorry for the technical problems. But anyways, this level was designed to kind of let you know how blue switches work. Normally speaking, when you're trying to teach a new mechanic, you want to give at least two levels to practice them on. So the previous level, I had yellow switches, and originally when I was constructing level 5, it also had yellow switches as well. And I'll talk about which one was my 5th level that I designed, and you'll probably figure out very quickly why I did this. But instead, I went with this level. I went to move this level towards here. It's an easier level to solve, and secondly, it reinforces kind of why this game is fun, the chaotic nature of being able to control characters. This should be pretty obvious. We already know what the switches do. When you walk into it, it glows yellow now, and you see in front of us that the door has opened. So right at this point, we know that this switch opens doors. Good. And then if you walk off of it, the door now closes. So at this point, the player has learned that, hey, when you walk into the switch, it closes the door. I made it in such a way that they cannot miss it. By default, they're going to have this, camera pointing forward, and most people don't really turn the camera around as much because they want to remain oriented in the right place. So this just seems like a perfect setup to do so. We have some rotating lasers, so you should avoid that. When I was making this level, I kind of wanted to reinforce the idea of how bad, controlling characters and how much you have to manage controlling your characters had to be. So I put in a laser there to kind of give you a little sense of danger to realize that, hey, this is a difficult task to take care of. At this point, the player already knows that dismiss works, so my original intent was they'll eventually find out that they have to dismiss a character, and that'll leave the door open. So at that point, it's just a matter of getting two characters into the door. Again, to reinforce the chaotic nature of trying to really manage multiple characters at once. Now you might have noticed that I actually had 5 characters in there. I put a lot of characters in there just to because they each count as lives, I put all of those characters in there just to make sure that you would survive. If you lost like 1 or 2, you'll be just fine and still be able to solve this level. So again, I'm not demanding for perfection, I'm making sure that they can comfortably get through the level to the end. Level 6 was a 10th level I designed. The original intent of this level was to kind of go a little more creative. Let's start off with actually opening this door at least. So right here, you're seeing that I hid some blocks behind those doors, and most people at this point should be able to make connection between the two. They say, "Oh, I just need to push the blocks out." Now, what's interesting about this level is there's actually a situation in this level right now where you want to keep the door closed. Let me just pick up these 2 characters to talk about what I mean. When you're trying to position these blocks, you want to. It's actually easier to position them off of a wall. So here, I'm trying to position them off of a wall, and if the switch was still on, this would have been really hard to do, to kind of orient it in exactly where the wall is. But now that the switch is closed, the job turns out to be very much easier. So at this point, my original line of thinking for this puzzle was I would just collect the characters from here and get started on it. Since this part is just about platforming, I'll just talk about in designing this game. I added in the dismiss and the recruitment concept after I realized that the grand majority of the game was about trying to put people in corners, and I didn't really want to force people to do that all that much. So by being able to recruit characters, that'll allow me to allow the player to more easily form themselves in a shape that seems logical to pass through the level. So that was actually an anti-frustration feature that I put in, and it allowed me to add in a little more, in my personal opinion, more creative levels. This was a level that in the previous version I actually had a blue switch right there, and that was more or less by accident, and that was a really bad idea because at this point I thought that I've already taught the player that pink blocks, you can push them, but I did not. So this level, instead, I'm using this level to teach that pink blocks exist and that they are pushable in a very Pikmin-like fashion. So obviously it says 10. It should be pretty obvious that you need 10 characters to do something with it. A lot of people, when they saw that, they thought it was a switch and just kind of walked up to it and realized nothing happened. But usually most people kind of eventually figure out that you can slowly shove it in there. And like the textures make it really easy to figure out where your placements are because they're in this kind of grid fashion. From there, it's just another, it's just another switch puzzle, so yeah. I see a Muscle Max band there. Nice to see you again. Although I can't say I can't recognize who is who at this point. So there's a single tiny lone laser there. Confession time, I put that there because I thought I underutilized lasers. When I go through later levels, you'll realize that they're kind of missing. So basically, when I was kind of going through at the last few hours on the game, I just started stuffing lasers at all sorts of random places. Alright, so let's go to the next level. This was the original level 5, the part where I said I was supposed to be teaching the understanding how to use the yellow switches more. I put this here because it's a very unusual level, a very unusual puzzle in comparison to the rest. And it also it's very tedious and takes a lot of time. And I didn't want most people to get, bored at that point, so let me just go on and try solving this level. At this point you see this tall, blockish, and you're like, okay, I've seen a lot of characters be able to jump this. Your character that you start off with, Estrella, can't. She is the heaviest character of them all. And right from the get-go, I'm kind of telling you that, hey, if she can't do it, you're going to have to ask someone else to. We have this tall buff guy who appeared in this second level, and we already know that he's pretty capable. He's capable of jumping very high. So at this point, I'm relying on the player's memory on how high each character can jump, and recognize that this character is a much better jumper than the Estrella herself. And that is a glitch. I don't know how Estrella made it to jump that, but whatever. So we grab this character, and we have this one switch. At this point, most people were used to the blue switches, so they thought that they needed to put a character in there, although eventually they figured out you didn't need to. But nonetheless, that's kind of like a mistake that I've made working on this. Second is this part. Obviously, it's there to let you know that tall characters can't pass through short areas. And how do you do that? You kind of let them know that this place is pretty darn dangerous from the first place. We do have a short character on hand now, though. So, and I've already taught the player that, hey, what you want to do is you want to recruit characters and switch to them. So at this point, it's just a matter of recycling. It's just a matter of just redoing that process. And that's about it. And then finally we have this bizarre looking box character. Her name is Box-chan, by the way. And she is by far the highest jumping character. At this point, the last character that we have left over here, which we can see is as a stone character over there. The last character we have left is stuck on a very tall platform that up to this point we've seen no other character be able to jump. And what do you know? She can pull it off. This was kind of all intentional, but yeah, that was the kind of the line of puzzle thinking I was doing here. Apologies, my throat is starting to get dry, and I'm not very good at constructing sentences. Earlier, you might have noticed that each switch has a little line that's coming from it to the door that's connected to. Right from the get-go, you're staring at the door, and I did that deliberately because I want to make you kind of look for all these switches first, and to realize that, hey, each character does something special. So this is where you're utilizing different kind of character properties, and I'm already hinting you to do this via switches. Yoink. And we solved the puzzle. Remember again, this used to be level 5. I'm glad I moved it down to here. It's such a tedious level, to be completely honest. I recently changed this level as well. Long story short, because there was a last-minute mistake I've made during the game jam, so it's going to look a little different. Those things says 9999. Which means that very much you don't have enough characters to move. That's kind of like my way of saying these blocks are stationary. Technically for this level there isn't a very good reason to, but there is a level of foreshadowing to it because we're going to see this motif again. Now, I'm going to go solve this the normal way, and then I'm going to solve it the stealth way. But the original intent on this line of level was, to have it so that you have enough characters to push it here and have that fall down. I said earlier that this was actually I did not. This is supposed to be level 6. So at this point my line of thinking was by the 6th level I would be teaching you that pink blocks would allow you to push. And while that is still currently true, I realized that this specific level formation was not the most optimal way of doing it. So that's why this was moved all the way back here. So I'm going to replay this level again and just talk about the quick stealth method here. I kind of realized this a little too late, but then again, I'm also happy that I have this solution as well. You can just kind of have enough characters rolling around, have them jump on the yellow blocks. Oh, whoops. Let's switch characters. And just jump that gap right there. Rinse and repeat. I do like games that have multiple solutions, so like I said, I'm glad that I have this in there. It gives us the idea that, hey, there are multiple ways to solve the game. Alright, so we're almost close to the end of the game. Here we see the 9999 block again, and we see a bunch of lasers. So what do? You're obviously not going to try crossing over the lasers like I did earlier. You're going to want to hit this switch, because, you know, that's connected to a 999 block. This is kind of, you know, I kind of put this together in a very jokester way. I just wanted a reason to say there is a case where if you hit a switch, then you can make things fall. So now that we have this 999 block down all the way here, what do? I'm reusing a similar puzzle mechanic, which is these doors hide blocks, and from there it's just a matter of pushing those blocks towards the 5 blocks earlier. So yeah, this is just one of those generic block pushing levels. I just wanted to kind of think of all sorts of different ideas. At this point I was kind of like redesigning this, because you now know all the mechanics to the game. It's just a matter of being able to put several of these pieces together. I usually like to push blocks as a singular character. But right, here we go. By the way, I apologize if I'm not responding to any game chats right now. Whenever I do that, the whole game halts, and I want to be able to kind of play the game first, so bear with me as I just keep playing this game until I'm able to have like a Q&A session. Alright, here we go. We have the blocks pushed over there. Jump! Jump! So now we can easily overcome this 999 block. And you find the goal. There's also the fact that I kind of wanted to show there was a goal behind there. I don't think I did a good job at that, but still, most people were able to find it pretty easily. This is actually one of my favorite levels. Here I'm just gonna recruit everyone. You might notice that by default, I'm letting the character, or excuse me, by default the character that you play as is Box-Chun, which, as you recall, is the tallest jumping character. There's a pretty darn good reason for that. Why? When you hit all the switches, you'll fall out, and it kind of reveals this gigantic laser maze. And her jumping skills becomes invaluable at that point, because she has, you know, a lot of when you're jumping across the whole chasms, you have a lot of opportunity to do this. Oh, there's one of them dying. Basically, this is the level where I first introduced the red magenta-ish switch. The red magenta-ish switch is that you have to trigger all the switches at once. But once you have done that, you know, you're good to go. The door will remain open. This was very intentionally supposed to be have a lot of characters, and a lot of it was, you know, just chancing in, keeping as many characters alive as possible as you're trying to solve this level. It was very intentionally a dangerous level, you know. I had to add one of those in there, so this was my line of thinking. I'll put it in here. Oh, and just like that, remember I previously mentioned that red red switches, all you need to do is you just have to activate all of them at once and they'll open. So at this point, my assumption was that all the characters on the corners were the only ones alive, or at least that was my line of thinking. And you should be able to just quickly be able to solve that by collecting all the characters that are on the switches. Although I just missed a few. Oh. Yeah, I'm not very forgiving to my own characters. Here we go. Actually, personally, I call these characters. I don't really have an official term for each of these single persons. All right, we're at the last level. I've mentioned it as a post-mortem. It's my favorite level, favorite last level that I've designed. But as right from the get-go, I'm letting you know that you need 20 characters. Reason being, I suspected that a lot of people were not going to notice that the number of characters you need to solve the goal is on the upper right-hand corner. And in this case, you need a lot of characters immediately. So I wanted to let you know right from the get-go that, hey, you need 20 characters to finish this level. So this entire level is mostly about collecting characters. Here you see the magenta switches. And the lasers. And the box, 10. And I'm, again, showing off that, you know, the bottom can fall out too. Hi, Terrence. I just realized you were on chat.
I just made a profile.
Yep.
I thought you'd be happy.
So here we see a bunch of doors and a line going on there, but we can kind of ignore it. The first thing, once you get past this, the first thing that the player is going to notice is this high-level rise over here and the low-level hanging location here. And they'll be like, okay, so again, I have to now utilize each individual character's powers. Again, kind of going through what they previously learned from other levels. Oh, looks like I accidentally recruited one of the characters in a higher level. Here's a little high location that not that many characters can jump through. So again, now you have to use the higher jumping characters, such as the box shuns over here. So again, this is kind of where I kind of accumulated all the kind of game concepts that I've been introducing earlier into one single mega level, which makes it very ideal as a final level. I put these blocks here largely to allow other characters, in case you don't have enough on the upper level, to be able to rise up to this level. So these lesser jumping characters can now actually get to the higher level at this point. This door reveals 2 more characters, so that puts us at a fairly large number. Oh great, we have Estrella. Nice to remember that. We have a 7 block here. 7 block largely to make the game easier. I didn't want to require people to actually push those yellow blocks at the bottom. So at this point, it's pretty easy to get 7 people at once. But most of the time, people will know that you need to push this block. They'll also quickly learn that even pushing in this direction, nothing happens. So here it is. We pushed it here, what happens? And now we're revealing that huge switch there that earlier, you know, was connected to that door. And apparently one of our characters died. I don't know how that happened. So that should reveal the last door over there, which reveals 5 more characters. You might notice that since there are since you only need 20 characters and there are 25 in this level, that technically you don't need to take care of the last puzzle. But I put that in there nonetheless for precisely the reason that, you know, that happens where a character dies right in front of my eyes right there. So at this point it's just a matter of gathering all the characters that you had earlier into one spot. Okay, so it looks like only 2 characters died. This was kind of by accident, but because there's this drop level and this tiny ledge, you can actually now orient all the characters to be in a single file here, which makes the next part a lot easier. Aha! And that completes that level. So that's suddenly thousands in its entirety. There has been questions about how I've been able to design this level in such a quick, or how I was able to construct that level in such a quick time. Long story short, I took a lot of assets from other locations. I'm listing them out right now. You're seeing it in the credits. And yeah, you know, I borrowed a lot of stuff that I know I have a license to because they're free, and I just need to give them credit. I just borrowed a lot of stuff from online and kind of cobbled it together into one. But I'm pretty happy with how things turned out. It allowed me to really focus on the design of the game more so than anything else. This guy, by the way, there, Kevin McLeod, he's awesome. I highly recommend checking out his game. Or not game, excuse me, music. And thanks for all the people who funded this game for Patreon. Alright, so sweet, awesome. So that's the game in general. As mentioned earlier, it was kind of a game that I constructed out of accident, and I was really happy with it. I'm also really happy to learn that it became the top-rated Baking Game Jam game. And yeah, that's about it. So